So I was about 7 to 8 months pregnant with my daughter, 20 years old at the time. And I needed to stop and get makeup from the dollar store on my way home from work. I've done it 1,000 times before. I mean, this dollar store is literally 3 minutes from my house. It's my go-to store when I need something cheap and fast. Well, I go in, and I start browsing. It's the dollar store, for God's sake. Like I was actually going to leave with just makeup. And I noticed this guy walking behind me. No big deal, right? He's probably just doing the same thing I'm doing, looking at junk. So, I grab a few things, throw it in my basket. All I do is casually follow me down aisle after aisle, looking at the junk, and eventually move on to the makeup aisle. I'm standing there trying to decide which $5 fountain I'm going to butcher next. And I kid you not, this man is suddenly standing next to me in the freaking makeup aisle. And by next to me, I mean less than a foot away, looking at lip stain. Now, at first, I wasn't too concerned. Again, it's the dollar store, and people are weird. But something about him being so close to me in that moment just wigged me out. Here I am, a 5'2", very pregnant post-teen, essentially a watermelon person, who struggled to walk, let alone run more than 20 feet at a time without having to stop and catch my breath. My daughter was/is a big girl. Very tall. I am not. She moved at this point, and I had to find the willpower to start breathing again after her foot deflated a lung. Of course, the only thing going through my head was, Jesus, I'm too tired to be kidnapped right now. Which, at the time, I thought was a joke. Who would even attempt to snatch a pregnant lady? I doubt I even fit in their van. Imagine the amount of inconvenient, non-criminally consistent bathroom breaks. That'll really put a damper in their plans. You know, all those dumb, unrealistic thoughts that you think to try and make yourself feel less weird in a weird situation. Anywho, I acknowledge that this guy is creeping, and I grabbed the last foundation bottle that I had looked at, not caring if it was even the right color, and went to the counter to check out. Dude followed me. Again. He was right behind me in line with absolutely no merchandise. Guess he ended up buying candy or something from the counter. I paid for my crap and immediately called my fiance before walking out of the store. I made a point to state, somewhat loudly, that I needed him to stay on the phone with me until I pulled out of the parking lot. I was pretty freaked out by this point, but I had made it to my car and out of the parking lot. Cool, almost home. So I happened to glance in my rear view at a red light, and this guy was, I kid you not, behind me in his car. Cue watermelon person tears, in absolute panic. Ended up pulling into a gas station that my fiance's best friend was managing. The dude followed me there too, and ended up waiting in the office for the dude to finally leave, about 15 minutes later. Fiance's friend wanted to call it in, but I was tired and high off pregnancy hormones. I wasn't sure if this guy was actually following me, or if I was just overreacting and paranoid. I didn't want to get this guy in trouble for just running errands or whatever, so I convinced him not to. Thinking about this now, post-watermelon, I probably should have let him call. I lived in a very medium-sized town my whole life. It was overran with drugs and one of the worst homeless problems per capita in the country. Living there, I knew not to trust anyone, but I had enough friends there I mostly felt safe. I transferred colleges to one of the biggest, richest cities in the country, and when this happened, I had been living there about a year. I felt safe, even alone. My school and home were outside the regular touristy areas, and my neighborhood was mostly retired rich people and students like myself. I felt safe walking to and from school by myself, so I wasn't expecting this to happen. I normally don't give any strangers the time of day, mostly because I don't want to interact with people. But this day, I guess I was feeling talkative. I was in my neighborhood walking back from school, but still a few streets away from my house, when I hear a voice above my music. I pulled out a headphone and stopped, and I heard a man calling out for me. I looked behind me, but didn't see anything, and I figured it must be coming from the car behind me. I don't know what was going through my head that day, and why I didn't just keep heading home. But I walked towards the car. It was a tan SUV, not screaming danger, but I had a mental note of the first three of its license plate. And when I got to the passenger side window, it was already rolled down, and there was a guy sitting in the driver's seat. He was in my general age range, had on nice clothes, a button-up and tie, and was immediately attractive. Not out of place, but not immediately trustworthy. I thought he just needed directions. He asked if I went to my college, and I said yes. He told me he sees me by the science building every day, and thought it was pretty. This is where my alarm bell started to ring. My major was nowhere close to science. I had only been on campus twice a week, if that. He asked my name, and I gave him a fake one, but told him he must be mistaking me for someone else, because I was never by science. He got extremely nervous, and I started to pull away. The alarms in my head were screaming at this point. He told me to wait, and asked if he could take me out for drinks right now, even though it was barely noon. I turned him down, citing the fact that I had a boyfriend, and he said, "What, you can't have friends?" in a condescending, forced, casual way. Scared now, I apologized and said my boyfriend was waiting for me. A lie, but I felt like he needed to know that someone would miss me. I've never had such a strong fight or flight instinct hit me. I pulled away and walked away as fast as I could. I guess in the heat of the moment I failed to check and see if he was following me. The next time I had class, I was walking up my street and stopped dead when I recognized his car. I feigned realizing I had forgot something and walked back into my house, frantically texting my boyfriend. I stopped walking to class for a month. A few days after this, I was getting ready to leave for work. I was working the open shift, so I was leaving my house at 4 a.m. And even before this, I was very careful about being aware of my surroundings before and after getting into my car. As I was pulling out, I noticed his car 2 houses down from mine, closer than last time. I texted my boyfriend to let him know, and we agreed that I wasn't going to be leaving the house alone until we figured out what was going on. I work in the industry that casually attracts cops, and the morning shift especially invited at least 5 of them at any time to be hanging out in our lobby. So I had cultivated a strong, friendly relationship with a few of them. The morning that I had left to notice them, I sat down with the cops that had gathered for the morning and explained my situation. They said that while something wasn't right, they couldn't really do anything for me because no threat was made. Not long after my conversation with my cop friends, one of them was responding to a call about a suspicious vehicle, completely by accident, recognized the car as my description of his car, and remembered my story. He told me that he walked up to the car and asked what he was doing just sitting in his car, citing the call they received, and noticing obvious evidence of surveillance. A camera, a few notebooks, food wrappers, and water bottles. They ran his info, and it turned out he had a warrant out for assault with a deadly weapon and harassment. I was called in shortly after to identify him and make a statement. After he was arrested, I was told that it was obvious he had been stalking me for weeks. He had even documented when my boyfriend came and left, and admitted to wanting to kidnap me at some point, having all the equipment to do so in his car, saying that he was waiting for the right moment, but my boyfriend was always in the way. I thank those cops every day for saving me from what could have been the worst experience of my life, and my observant neighbors for calling his car in. Moral of the story, trust your gut, and always be aware of your surroundings. I remember this story vividly, and so does my mom, because it is by far the scariest story of my life. For context, I was about 7 or 8 and lived in a family-oriented, safe, suburban neighborhood. One sunny day in the summer, my mom was just working and doing some things around the house, and I was probably being an annoying 8-year-old, so my mom suggested I go outside to play in the front yard. This wasn't unusual, as I had done it countless times before, and like I had mentioned earlier, family and children were always outside. My mom would come out every 15 to 20 minutes to check on me also. My dad was also not home at the time. While I was doing whatever an 8-year-old does outside, a car pulled over in front of my house and a woman stepped out. And she was dressed nicely. She had business attire and was driving a black car that I now know resembles a Honda Civic. She walks over to me playing, and the conversation went something like this. "Hi, your mom called me earlier to tell you I'm picking you up from babysitting today. She said that she has a lot of work to do." "Oh, really? Who are you?" "I work with your mom." I'm gonna go inside and tell her that you're here." No, you don't need to. We already talked about it." She proceeded to walk towards me with her arms out, and I ran inside. "Stop! I have candy and toy at my house. You'll have so much fun." When I got inside, I told my mom what the lady said, and that she was here. And my mom obviously shot up and ran outside, but unfortunately, the lady was already down our street, and all I remember was the color and make of her car. So, yeah. Let's not meet again.